Twilight sighed as she entered her humble abode, scarcely able to lift her weary hooves. "Spike!" she called out, checking if the dragon was home. There was no reply. Owlicious didn't seem to be on his perch either. "Oh, that's right," she said to herself. "They'd gone with Sakura, hadn't they? It must have slipped her mind that their trip was scheduled for that day." To be honest, she was relieved to be alone. She didn't particularly want to be seen like this, and she didn't think she could keep her feelings bottled up inside any longer. She barely took a few steps inside before giving up and grumpily slumping to the ground. The funk had been with her all morning, and it showed no signs of lifting. It was as if there was a shadow hovering over her, leaving her devoid of colour and vibrancy. She couldn't shake it off, no matter how hard she tried. What was worse was that she knew the source. She knew why she felt like this, and what would cure her blues. That just made her broody mood feel all the more immature and childish. It was her own fault she couldn't act on it, her own failings that had her feeling this way. So why was she taking it out on the rest of the world? Oh, right. Pettiness. Who would have thought, she muttered to herself, that the noble name of Twilight would ever be associated with melodramatically moping around all because of some pony you have a crush on? She sighed, pouting as she rested her head on her hooves, ashamed of herself for being such an adolescent about this. "Look out below!" Twilight didn't even flinch as a cyan streak crashed through a window, landed muzzle first on the floor, and careened into a bookcase, causing its contents to spray everywhere upon impact. "Hi, Rainbow," Twilight deadpanned. "Hi, Twilight," Rainbow Dash cheerily replied, poking her head up from under the pile of books. One of them splayed open on her head. Twilight didn't even bother to ask for an explanation. This was a common enough occurrence that it was practically on schedule. "Hey, you can get up now," Rainbow Dash said as she trotted over to her prone friend. The unicorn gave no response. "Why are you still ducking like that?" "I'm not ducking," Twilight Sparkle mumbled, not moving from her spot. "Okay," Rainbow Dash eyed her strangely. "What are you doing then?" "Oh, a guessing game," Pinkie Pie enthused, abruptly leaping up out of Twilight's waste paper basket without so much of a word of warning or explanation. "Ah!" "Oh, it's you," Twilight cut herself off mid-squeal, her initial response immediately fading once she realized it was just Pinkie. "Hi, Pinkie." She forced herself to smile, on some level grateful for the presence of her friends, but still wishing to be left alone. "Can I play the guessing game?" Pinkie asked, bouncing up and down with glee. "Yeah, go ahead, knock yourselves out, I don't mind," Twilight said, sullenly dragging her hooves over to the stairs, heading to the bed where she could sulk some more in peace. Okay, let's see. Was she looking for a contact lens, or digging for treasure, or pretending to be a dog?" Pinkie wondered aloud, eager to find out. "Am I right? Is that the answer? Is there a prize if I get the answer? What's the prize? Is it something you eat?" Rainbow Dash wasn't listening, more focused on bigger concerns. Sure, Twilight could be a grump, but she'd never been this much of a bummer before. "Huh?" she hummed to herself, cocking her head slightly, confused by her friend's odd behaviour. "Hey, Pinkie, what's wrong with Twilight?" she asked, wondering if she'd missed some big event while practicing her tricks earlier that morning. "Huh?" Pinkie stopped mid-hop, turning to cast a glance at Twilight's retreating form. "I don't know. Now that you mention it, she seems pretty down," she agreed, rubbing her chin in contemplation, curious as to what could have caused this unwarranted downturn in her mood. "Maybe we should cheer her up then," Rainbow commented, with an idle shrug. Pinkie looked at her expectantly, apparently not catching on that it had been a prompt for her to be her near-perpetually cheery self and spout an assortment of suggestions, most likely in song. Pinkie cleared her throat. "You got any ideas?" She tried again, less subtly. Pinkie gasped as it came to her. "Does she like butter tarts?" She all but buzzed with excitement, an apparently ingenious solution to Twilight's problems, already forming in her eccentric mind. Rainbow Dash blinked, side-eyeing her pink companion. "Do you have any ideas that make sense?" "Oh," Pinkie laughed, tapping a hoof to her head. "No, none whatsoever." Rainbow sighed. "Fine, I guess it's up to me then," she sighed, following Twilight upstairs, figuring she had to handle this the old-fashioned way, by talking. When she reached the second floor, she saw Twilight curled up on her bed, facing the wall, practically huddled right in the corner. Rainbow suppressed an awkward groan. She really wasn't the right pony for this. She'd never been much good at any of that, what's the word? Sensitive stuff. But then again, there was a first time for everything. She swallowed. Hey, she began, sporting a very unconvincing grin. Twilight didn't respond. Hey, buddy! Rainbow tried again, uncertainly, moving a little closer. What you doing there? Twilight lifted a blanket with her magic and draped it over herself, signalling that she was very definitely ignoring her and planned on sustaining this course of action. Rainbow's ears went lopsided, a confused look coming over her. So, do you want to talk about it, or you don't? She asked, unsure what she was supposed to be reading from her body language. Yes, no, I don't know. Twilight sighed, flopping back on her bed. It wasn't fair of her to act like this. Just because she was miserable was no excuse to treat her friends like manure, especially when they were only trying to help her feel better. It's complicated, she explained, sitting up more properly, though her head still hung low, as if she couldn't summon the will to lift it to its regular height. Try me, Rainbow challenged with a friendly smirk. Twilight averted her eyes, her inner turmoil written plainly on her face. Her inside squirmed as she sat there, locked in a battle between the urge to keep her secret locked away forever and the desire to let it out and seek the help she knew she needed. I'm in love, she admitted, the words sinking like a stone in the silence of the room. In love? Pinky exclaimed, leaping high enough in the air that she nearly hit the ceiling. That's not bad news. That's wonderful. That's incredible, she chirped, dancing her way up to the second floor. Yeah, Rainbow agreed, preparing to congratulate her friend, until a secondary doubt struck her. Isn't it? It would be, if I didn't keep making a fool out of myself every time we're together, Twilight lamented, picking up a pillow and holding it over her head, as if hoping that she and all her shame would disappear if she hid there long enough. Oh, don't worry about it, Sparky. Love makes fowls of us all, Pinky encouraged, throwing a friendly hoof over her shoulder in a perpetually positive way. Twilight's response was muffled by the pillow, coming out as little more than a strained mew. It was like a curse to think of all the time she'd spent poring over her books, studying tomes of ancient knowledge, sharpening her mind to a fine instrument of wit, only for her to turn into a tongue-tied dolt the one time it really counted to keep her senses about her. Ugh! She could have dropped dead from embarrassment 5.5 times over just thinking about it. So go on, don't leave us hanging. Who's the lucky pony? Asked Rainbow, taking the pillow between her teeth and throwing it aside, leaving her poor, smitten friend with nowhere to hide. Twilight bit her lip, nervously shrinking under her friend's eager stares. This was going to be one hey of a revelation for them. The bell above Carousel Boutique's door twinkled as a pink mane peeked timidly inside. Hello? Fluttershy weakly called out, seeing the main floor was uncharacteristically empty. Rarity? She tried again, stepping a little further inside, letting the door swing shut behind her. The sound made her jump. It wasn't her imagination. The shop really did seem to be deserted. Oh no, she hoped she hadn't missed her. Of all the times for Rarity to be out, why today? Not today. Please. Fluttershy didn't think she could bear it any longer, being stuck the way she was. She needed a friend. Badly. Thankfully, she heard the upstairs door swing open a little, and then a moment later, Hang on, I'll be right. Oh, Fluttershy, it's you. Come right up, darling. Rarity greeted her, beaming brightly and gesturing for the Pegasus to join her. Fluttershy didn't hesitate to sigh with relief, never more glad to see her best friend. Really, there's no need for you to wait for an invitation to come upstairs. You're practically family. Thank you. Fluttershy blushed, her mane falling in front of her eyes as it so often did, concealing the expression. So, to what do I owe the pleasure of this visit? Asked Rarity, waiting at the top of the stairs for her notoriously reserved companion to reach her. Fluttershy wasn't in any hurry to make the climb, if her pace was any indication. Well, it's, I hope it's not a bad time, but it's, you see, I really need to talk to some pony. Well, to you, right now, Fluttershy admitted, her gaze drifting bashfully to the floor. She knew Rarity was busy all the time, and that she was probably interrupting a million far more important things with her petty troubles. But, well, she was desperate. She needed advice, lots of it, and who else could she turn to if not her very own best friend? Oh, you poor dear, of course, you know you can always talk to me about anything, Rarity said sincerely, her big sister instinct showing. She was always concerned for the welfare of her friends. Well, almost always at least, sometimes, occasionally. I can assure you, you have my undivided attention, she said, holding open the door to her private quarters, prepared to do anything she could to help. Thank you so much. This really means a lot to... The moment she looked into the room, Fluttershy froze. Oh, hi there, Fluttershy, Applejack said, grinning widely at her arrival, evidently pleased to see that she had stopped by. Applejack? She stammered. Ordinarily, Fluttershy would have been thrilled to have her there, but on this day, things were more than a little different. She had to stifle a squeak as her nerves got the better of her. What are you doing here? She asked, what small amount of confidence she had previously fallen to bits in an instant. Nothing much, Applejack replied, trotting over to the work area. No real story to it, just working on a gift for Granny Smith. I don't know nothing about no sewing, you see. So I graciously offered to help her in her hour of need, Rarity finished for her, clearly speaking with the greatest admiration of her own indefinitely charitable spirit. Yeah, that, Applejack said, rolling her eyes behind Rarity's back. Oh, I see. That's good. Fluttershy forced a smile, instinctively backing away, suddenly no longer looking forward to airing her problems in company, her very private problems. As much as she loved Applejack, and trusted her with all her heart, it had taken every ounce of her inner strength to work up the courage to even consider telling Rarity about this. Having to tell two ponies right off the bat was like skipping a fowl's first tentative steps, and signing them straight up to go cliff diving. Suffice it to say, this was a much bigger task than she had expected. So what brings you here? Applejack genially asked, seemingly clueless to Fluttershy's nervous trembling, even as she stood right next to her. Then again, maybe she was just used to her being like that, as if convinced it was her natural physical state. Anything I can help you with? It's nothing. I'm sure it can wait. It sounded like something was really troubling you, Rarity said as she idly tidied up her work area, unaware that she had cut the Pegasus off. Her attempts at speech were virtually inaudible, even more so than usual. Whatever's on your mind, you know you need not keep it to yourself, darling, especially if it's urgent. Well, yes it is, sort of, Fluttershy meekly admitted, still eyeing the door behind her as she weighed up her options. Well, that's what your friends are for, Sugar Cube, Applejack reminded her, giving her an encouraging nudge, which did bring a small smile to Fluttershy's face, in spite of everything. Come to think of it, of all the other non-Rarity ponies who could have been there at that moment, AJ was definitely her ideal choice. After all, there she was, offering her timid friend her unconventional support without question or criticism, just like she always did. Your secrets are in safe hooves here. I know, and I'm very grateful for that, Fluttershy said, moving a little further into the room and sitting down, steeling herself for all she was about to do. Rarity and Applejack were both silent, each expecting Fluttershy to speak. Unsurprisingly, she merely sat there, resigned to her silence, and made no move to say anything at all. So, then? Rarity broke the quiet, hoping that might prompt Fluttershy to get started. It did not. She frowned slightly. Well, go on, darling. What's all this fuss about? Fluttershy blanched. Oh, no, I didn't mean to cause a fuss. I'm so sorry, she said, looking so incredibly guilty at the thought of being a bother that she damn near seemed ready to turn into the clops over it. Rarity eyed her, unsure whether the Pegasus had actually misinterpreted what she'd said, or whether she was deliberately stalling in an effort to put off the conversation. Odds were on the latter. Come on now, we can't be of much use if you don't say what's ailing ya, Applejack lightheartedly pointed out. You're right, Fluttershy conceded, not that it did anything to quell the increasingly furious pounding of her heart and the quickening of her breath. Oh gosh, why had it suddenly gotten so hot in here? Was it a fever? Yes, that must have been it. Maybe she was ill. Maybe she should put this off and get some rest. She could tell them the truth when she was feeling better, right? She shook her head, silencing her own inner monologue. No, she couldn't let any of that stop her. She had to fight through the anxiety coursing through her. This was at least half the reason why she'd needed to come here in the first place. It was her nerves that kept getting her stuck in these awful jams and rendered her unable to express her feelings or act on them at all. If she didn't start fighting her fears now, she'd never get anywhere, and it would be all for nothing. So, she released a shaky breath, squeezing her eyes shut, knowing what she had to do. She began. Yes? Rarity encouraged, hopefully. That's it, you're almost there, said Applejack, inwardly cheering her on. Fluttershy could feel the words in her throat, ready to get out. All they needed was a little push. Just one little push. She took a breath and swallowed, preparing to force them out. She moved to speak. She opened her mouth and then... The only sound that escaped her was a pathetic bleat. Her eyes widened. Her limbs locked up. Next thing she knew, she was on her back, her panic-stricken limbs sticking ramrod straight in the air. Applejack and Rarity both sighed. She'd choked. Oh, and she was so close too, said the unicorn sympathetically. It was impossible not to feel disappointed by the result on Fluttershy's behalf. This is like that incident with the dragon all over again, Applejack commented, sadly wishing there was something more she could do for a situation beyond standing there and praying real hard. It's okay, Fluttershy stammered, attempting to clamber back onto her hooves, though she lost her balance in the process. Her legs wobbled like jelly every time she tried to stand, her limbs clearly sending the message that they either couldn't or wouldn't support her. I thought this might happen, so, I wrote a note just in case, she said, nodding towards her left wing, having anticipated this outcome. Rarity arched a brow at that, but seeing as this was still a vast improvement over getting nothing out of her whatsoever, elected not to press the issue. A note would have to do as long as Fluttershy couldn't find her voice. She used her magic to levitate the note over to her, neatly unfolded it, and a gasp resonated throughout the room. Oh my, said Rarity, the note falling out of the air. Fluttershy winced, hiding behind her mane, blushing so fiercely her entire coat seemed to be tinged with pink. She'd been worried about how they would react to her confession. That was part of what made it so hard, so petrifying. What? Let me see, said Applejack, standing over the fallen note and squinting in an effort to read the small writing. All that was there were 3 little words. I love Twilight. Before Applejack could react, Rarity grabbed her, all but barreling into the earth pony in her haste to do so. Do you know what this means? She asked as she seized her, causing Applejack to flinch at the volume, not to mention at the half-crazed look in her histrionic cohort's eyes. Fluttershy whimpered and buried her muzzle under her hoof, not wanting to hear this. Matchmaking! Rarity squealed with delight, clapping her front fetlocks together, seeming oblivious to the fact that she was squeezing the air out of Applejack every time she did so. Fluttershy braced herself for the fallout, knowing the terrible consequences this could have on their friend. Wait, what? She glanced up, wondering if her ears were playing tricks on her. Oh, this is simply marvellous, Rarity said, practically glowing with excitement. She was so thrilled that she didn't even seem to care that she had been cuddling up against Applejack, of all ponies. Ugh, the cow pony murmured when her asphyxiation finally ended, falling to the floor like a lump of lead once Rarity released her from her death grip. The unicorn ignored this, having turned her attention to Fluttershy. You definitely came to the right pony, darling, Rarity assured her lovelorn friend, throwing a forelimb over Fluttershy's shoulders. After all, I am an expert when it comes to all the matters of, how you say, the romance. she said with an excess of theatricality, already caught up in picturing some grand fantasy of a love story for her two friends, and clearly determined to see it come to fruition. Phew! Fluttershy sighed with relief. For a second there she thought she was going to be mad at her or something. She should have known Rarity better than that. Of course she was the right pony to ask about this sort of stuff. Of course she would jump at the opportunity to meddle in this kind of affair. Excuse me? Applejack raised a hoof to interrupt, still looking more than a little bizarrely at Rarity before snapping her focus back to more important matters. I'm mighty happy for you, hon, really I am, but if you don't mind my asking, why didn't you just say so? She asked, as if it should have been obvious. She didn't see what all the drama was for. Fluttershy tilted her head in confusion. Well, if you remember back to about 2 minutes ago, I tried to, but then I fell over like this, she explained, rolling onto her back, reenacting her fearful fainting spell from earlier. No, not to us. I mean, why didn't you just tell Twilight how you feel? Applejack asked with a shrug, ever the voice of reason, mundane a role as it was. I'm assuming you haven't told her none, seeing as how you coming to asking for help and all? Fluttershy glanced down, looking troubled. I can't. Well, sure you can, AJ encouraged, endeavouring to boost her confidence, since that was clearly the only obstacle standing in her way. Come on now, you know try as well as I do. She ain't gonna hurt you none. What's the worst I could... No. Fluttershy cut her off, far more firmly, looking her square in the eye. I can't. Because of your nerves? Asked Rarity, genuinely lost as to what Fluttershy meant when she said she couldn't tell her how she felt. Yes, but also because we're friends, she said, unconsciously rubbing one of her forelegs against the other, as if in an attempt to console herself. I can't just walk up to her and be like, hey, how's your day going? That's great. I love... Fluttershy choked, not even being able to finish the thought, hanging her head once she'd finished her vague enactment, clearly plagued with worries about the whole dilemma. Why not? Applejack asked, straightforwardly. It seemed to her like the fears that held Fluttershy back were just figments of her imagination. Sounds good to me. Because we're friends, Fluttershy emphasized, as if that should have said everything. If she doesn't feel the same way, or something goes wrong, and we don't work out, then it will be really awkward, and there will be all these hurt feelings. We won't be able to be around each other, and we'll start avoiding each other, and so then the rest of you will have to split between us in order to make us feel better, and make it feel like neither one of us is being favoured or left out. But then you'll eventually realise that you stopped hanging out with all your friends on the other side because of us, and then you'll start to resent me and Twilight for making things all uncomfortable between us and splitting up the group, and then you'll start taking out those frustrations on us, and we'll all start arguing and fighting all the time, and then we won't be able to hang out at all. The next thing you know, we won't be friends. Never, ever again, she explained, all in a single breath. Applejack and Rarity blinked blankly, both of them stunned. Give her credit. She's thought this through at least, Rarity dryly remarked. So, yeah. Fluttershy ducked her head down, unable to lift her gaze. On second thought, she wished she hadn't brought up that scenario at all. She made herself sad just thinking about it. If you feel that way, then what do you want our help for? Asked Applejack, growing increasingly confused. The more she heard about this, the less sense it made. It sounded like Fluttershy didn't want to pursue her feelings for Twilight in the first place, in which case there was no need for friends to become involved, was there? Weren't you listening? Said Rarity, tisking and shaking her head at her obviously intellectually inferior comrade. Honestly, she scoffed, turning her nose up at the ruffian before resuming her place at Fluttershy's side. I understand, she said. You do? Asked Fluttershy, hopefully. If Rarity understood, then that means she wouldn't have to stutter out another convoluted explanation, as probably wouldn't have made any sense to any pony else but her anyway. Of course I do, darling. You want to be able to gauge whether your feelings for Twilight might be reciprocated, without taking the risk of confessing everything to her all at once, which you probably can't even do anyway, even if you tried. Yes, Fluttershy nodded in agreement. And you want to make sure that if you think you do have the opportunity to pursue a relationship, that firstly you'll work as a couple. Yes. And secondly, You want to make sure that your relationship gets off to an excellent start, particularly since that increases your chances of achieving the former point. See above. Working as a couple. And also because it will eliminate the lingering doubts and fears in your mind that are currently preventing you from opening up and telling her how you feel. Oh, definitely, yes. So, it follows that the reason you were so eager to seek my help, darling, was because you desired my advice and assistance in creating the completely and utterly perfect first date, without Twilight ever actually catching on that it is a date. That would sweep her off her hooves and be the ideal opportunity for you to tell her how you feel, and then lead into your chance to officially ask her out. Rarity concluded, looking thoroughly pleased with her deductive reasoning. How am I doing? You're really good at this, Fluttershy blushed, genuinely impressed. I know, Rarity smugly replied. Did you catch all that, Applejack? Yeah, I was listening, Applejack answered her. But why do you need our help with that? She asked. You've been friends with Twilight for a good while now. Surely you don't need any help hanging out with her and having a good time. The Cowpony laughed at the very thought of such a thing. It's not like you're completely useless as to what you're supposed to do when you're around her, right? Fluttershy shrank back, her face falling. Actually, she trailed off anxiously, deciding she would have to tell them the story, just so they would understand how dire her situation truly was. I don't get it, said Rainbow Dash, flapping her wings as she hovered in the general area above Twilight, following her around as she restacked all of the books the speedy Pegasus had previously knocked over. So you like Fluttershy, big deal, why don't you just go out and spend time with her? I have, Twilight insisted in exasperation. You have? Pinkie echoed excitedly. I've tried, she clarified uncomfortably. You've tried? What does that even mean? Asked an irritated Rainbow Dash. Twilight wasn't like normal ponies sometimes. She kept talking in circles, and not one of them made a lick of sense. Ugh, you just don't get it, Twilight groaned, letting her head flop against the desk. If you'd been there yesterday, you'd understand. Yesterday? What happened yesterday? Pinkie Pie asked, situating herself atop Twilight's desk, keen to hear a story. She liked stories. My latest and lamest attempt at a non-date with Fluttershy happened, Twilight explained, morosely. If our dates are as terrible as our non-dates, then I'd almost be lucky if Fluttershy doesn't return my affections. You like Fluttershy? Pinkie gasped, her jaw hitting the floor. Neither Twilight nor Rainbow even acknowledged Pinkie, apparently forgetting what she'd learned not even 2 minutes ago. Come on, Twilight, it can't have been that bad, Rainbow commented, sure that this so-called disaster of non-date was nothing more than Twilight's perfectionism, blowing one minor flaw completely out of proportion. She could be worse than Rarity sometimes. Want to bet? Twilight replied, prepared to share the gruesome details. It wasn't like she had any more dignity left to lose. I can remember it like it was yesterday. It was yesterday, Rainbow Dash interjected. Do you want the flashback or not? Twilight shouted her down. Literally, the sound managed to knock Rainbow Dash to the floor, leaving her more than a little startled. Huh. Yeah, she thought so. I remember it like it was yesterday, she resumed. Will it be the usual for both of you? The cafe waiter asked. Yes, please, Twilight replied, sitting comfortably atop her small haystack. That is, for me anyway. Didn't mean to speak for you, Fluttershy. She laughed awkwardly, attempting to pass it off as a joke. For you, madame? The waiter boredly inquired. Yeah, just, whatever, she skittishly replied, far too nervous to actually concentrate on the menu when she was too busy thinking about some pony else. Whatever it is, the waiter deadpanned, collecting their menus and walking away. Good. Alone at last. Twilight grinned across the table. Fluttershy shyly smiled back. Hi, Twilight somewhat uneasily began, where she thought it best to begin. Hi, Fluttershy replied. You look cute, beautiful, wonderful, radiant, lovely, resplendent, gorgeous, like the pony of my dreams. All these terms popped into her mind at that very moment. Shame she couldn't finish the darned sentence. Look, where? Fluttershy asked. Warily glancing about herself, she didn't see anything of particular importance, nothing worth her notice anyway. Deciding that she couldn't suddenly say, hot, without sounding weird, Twilight elected to just go with that interpretation. That was fine. Oh, okay. Fluttershy bowed her head slightly, sensing something was a bit off. She hadn't looked at the wrong thing, had she? Oh gosh, that would make her seem so dumb and clueless. Not like Twilight. She was so beautiful and smart. How embarrassing. This was not the impression she wanted to make around her. Maybe she should just keep quiet. She couldn't cause trouble if she kept her thoughts to herself. Silence. Dead silence. Gee, that was a fantastic start, Twilight thought to herself. Ahem. Twilight cleared her throat. She was racking her brain in search of something brilliant and charming to say, so naturally she wanted to make sure that when she finally found such a line, her voice would be working properly. Bless you, Fluttershy squeaked out, instantly regretting that utterance. She was only meant to say that when some ponies sneezed, not when they coughed. She must have sounded like an idiot again. What? Huh? What was that? What was what? Sorry, I thought you said something, said Twilight, sure she'd heard her speak a moment ago. Oh, no. Fluttershy shook her head, hiding behind her mane, anything she might have wanted to say quickly dying in her throat. Twilight suppressed a sigh. Everything was going so well. All she needed was for her ears to start playing tricks on her too. She gave them a flick, wondering if they needed cleaned. She couldn't do that in front of her not date though, could she? Yes, that would surely charm and attract Fluttershy where conversation had failed. Way to be weird, Sparkle, she thought to herself, doing her darndest to sit still and refrain from fidgeting. Fluttershy swallowed, too terrified to think. It was so quiet, Twilight could probably hear her heart thumping in her chest. Gosh, how embarrassing would that be, to have the silence broken by her awkward, panicky bodily noises. Her self-consciousness spiked to 11, making everything even louder. Shush, heart, Fluttershy told herself, closing her eyes in a futile effort to will her pulse to slow down just a teensy bit. Her stomach churned, making her wince. Twilight definitely had to have heard that. If that didn't creep her out, nothing would. You okay? Asked Twilight, seeing Fluttershy squinting at her, making the most bizarre facial expressions in her general direction. Is there something on my face? She asked half-jokingly. Yes, maybe. Oh gosh. Oh goodness, now she'd insulted her. This was just wonderful. This is why she was better saying nothing. At least then she couldn't screw up as badly as she already had. Haha, no biggie. Thanks for, pointing that out. Twilight gave an awkward laugh to hide her humiliation, waiting for a split second when Fluttershy averted her gaze to hastily wipe at her face, hoping her broad strokes would clear away whatever mess was distracting Fluttershy so much. Instead, all her efforts got her was a hoof to the nose. Oh! Oh? Fluttershy echoed, concerned yet confused. Twilight glanced up, not sure how exactly she could explain this, especially not if there was blood. Oh, Celestia, was there blood? I said, "How are you? How are you?" Oh, I'm fine. Thank you for asking. Whew. Good save. Twilight began, ignoring her still throbbing nose, hoping her brain would kick into gear and fill the blank once she'd actually started speaking. It didn't. No, nothing. She chickened out, looking down at the hay beneath her. A tumbleweed went by. Fluttershy felt her pulse pounding in her throat. Usually she liked the quiet, but here it was deafening. Maybe it was time to try to say something, to make a good impression, if Twilight was okay with that, of course. So... Yes, very! Twilight eagerly reacted, grinning brightly, if falsely. She hadn't been listening, too caught up in her thoughts to do so. Hence, when she had tuned back in and heard Fluttershy speaking, she naturally assumed she'd missed something important, and had hoped to hastily cover the fact with that. Instead, all she'd done was make Fluttershy's head disappear under the table, where the Pegasus had taken to cowering in fright. Fluttershy? She timidly glanced up. Oh, sorry. She tried to force her limbs to pick her back up, shaking though they were. They hurt from how much they'd been shivering throughout this whole totally platonic lunch. I just, hey, I love hay, she murmured by way of explanation. So do I, Twilight enthused, genuinely happy. This might be the lead-in she needed for an actual conversation to start. You love hay, I love hay. We have so much in common. She laughed, beads of sweat glimmering on her brow, and the cone of silence descended once more. So much for that idea. Twilight bit her lower lip. Failure level critical. Abort! Abort! Well, this has been fun, she said with far too much enthusiasm. This has been fun, Fluttershy agreed, relieved to be given an out, though she was sure she would be upset about it later. Right now she just needed an excuse to go before she passed out, threw up, or had a heart attack. Well, we should do it again sometime. Definitely! I would love to do it again. But hey, look at the time. Wow, is it that late already? Time flies when you're having fun. It does. Wouldn't you know it? I have to go feed my bed. I have to go wash my books. So many important things. You know how it is. Busy, busy, busy. Yes, it is like that. Well, see you. Bye. Fluttershy flew off as fast as her wings could take her, and Twilight teleported to safety without so much as a momentary hesitation. As luck would have it, the waiter walked out with their meals right at that very second, only to see the two patrons fleeing the scene faster than the Wonderbolts. Ugh! He huffed, all but tossing the plates to the floor. How rude! Twilight popped back into existence outside her house. Unfortunately, she'd been so rushed that she'd rematerialized roughly her own height off the ground, sending her crashing into the dirt face first. Ugh! She groaned as she sat up, seeing the stars. Then it all sank in, and she groaned even louder. Oh, Celestia! What an embarrassment! How could she have been so stupid? This proved it. There was no way Fluttershy could ever be interested in a socially backwards dork like her. She only needed to take one look at what had happened to see the evidence. After all, Fluttershy hadn't been able to get away from her fast enough when she made her escape. She hadn't wanted to talk to her at all. She'd acted like she couldn't even be near her anymore. Not willingly, anyway. That was it, wasn't it? Fluttershy probably never wanted to be around her again after this. This was the textbook definition of a disaster. Meanwhile, on the other side of Ponyville, Fluttershy hadn't made it far before her wings locked up and sent her spiraling into some pony's garden, where she smacked straight into a pot plant. After that, she gave up on flying and just galloped for it. Eventually, she stopped to catch her breath, cowering behind a wall, hoping she was far, far away from anywhere Twilight might see her. Her heart was beating so hard she thought it might explode. Just being around Twilight was enough to get her in this state. How could she ever get a smart and interesting pony like Twilight to like her when she couldn't even form words around her, let alone tell her how she felt? She was so weird and awkward and uncomfortable in her own skin, not cool and collected like Twilight. Fluttershy sighed, on the verge of giving up completely. She couldn't do this. That much was obvious. If she was ever going to get anywhere, then she needed help. If she couldn't express herself to Twilight, then surely some pony else could teach her how to. That was, if Twilight still wanted to see her at all after this. Rainbow Dash couldn't stop laughing as Twilight's version of events came to an end. The bright blue pony was rolling on the floor with tears coming out of her eyes, cackling with such intensity she almost seemed like she was choking on the sound. You look! You look! I know, Twilight groaned. Ow, are you? I know. She slid under her hooves. Ah! 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 Rainbow Dash wiped the last mirthful tear from her eyes, finally managing to compose herself. Tragic! I know. Twilight sighed in misery, feeling nauseous just thinking about it. Every time I try to talk to her, I can't say anything. I just clamp up. It's like I've got a lead bridle around my mouth that makes it impossible to speak. Oh, Celestia, she probably hates me. Twilight lamented, not sure whether she wanted to scream or cry. What, Fluttershy? Pinkie asked, finishing the last kernels of the bucket of popcorn that had appeared in her possession out of thin air, around the time the flashback started. Nah, Fluttershy would never hate you, she insisted reassuringly. She probably thinks you hate her, and that's why you're weird around her. Yeah, that's way more likely, she casually commented, oblivious to the expression of horror that fell over Twilight's features. Pinkie's got a point, Rainbow Dash agreed, ever the one to be blunt. Fluttershy's probably terrified of you right now, she said, as if that was somehow an improvement. Twilight whimpered, utterly devastated. Oh, come on, cheer up, Charlie, Pinkie said, wrapping a hoof around her forlorn friend. Just because you've got no moves doesn't mean you can't be smooth. You just need a helping hoof is all. Hey, yeah, Rainbow enthused, inspiration flashing her eyes. That was a great idea. From who? Twilight asked, failing to follow. Hello? Rainbow clopped her on the head. You're looking at the coolest pony in Ponyville, she boasted, proudly puffing up her chest. I could take you from chump to hunk in 10 seconds flat, she said with the utmost confidence. I don't know about that, Twilight said with a skeptical sigh. At this rate, it would take a miracle to make her seem like anything other than the queen of dweebs. Whenever I'm around Fluttershy, I turn into a muddled-up, mindless moron. Hey, trust me. Follow my advice and you'll seem like a regular Coltonova. You'll be the hottest of horses, the flyest of fillies, the pimpingest of ponies, Rainbow guaranteed her, casually kicking Twilight's hat stand, letting a trilby hat fall onto her head, landing with the brim slanted to one side. With me in your corner, you'll definitely be able to keep you cool around Fluttershy, she said with a smirk, winking her uncovered eye. Twilight wasn't convinced. Her expression showed it. Wouldn't keeping my cool around her entail me having some semblance of cool to begin with? She pointed out. I have no idea what you just said, Rainbow smugly admitted. When she was that cool, she didn't have to understand words. Me and Pinkie are gonna give you game. Isn't that right, Pinkie? That sounds awesome! Pinkie cheered, merrily bouncing around Rainbow. Twilight didn't need a Pinkie sense to know that a song was coming on. When you're in love, you gotta say the right words to that special girl. When you're in love, you gotta treat her nicely, tell her she's your world. Oh, love is such a silly thing, it makes you swear and it makes you sing. When you feel it happening, that girl becomes your everything. When you're in love, you're so in love, when you're in love. Pinkie posed for a finish, a cascade of streamers spontaneously appearing out of nowhere to coincide with the big finale. Rainbow Dash nodded approvingly. Lesson number 1, Rainbow began. Don't do that, she said, offhandedly gesturing towards Pinkie, appreciating the apt demonstration of how not to be a player. I'll keep that in mind, Twilight dryly remarked. And that's what happened yesterday, Fluttershy finished, recounting her side of the story, looking utterly ashamed of herself as she did so. Oh dear! Rarity seemed aghast as the tale ended, suddenly wondering if she'd bitten off more than she could chew. The situation is far worse than we thought. Fixing up a successful date for Fluttershy and Twilight was bound to be no easy task, not even for the most skilled of merry matchmakers. I don't know, Shy, Applejack chuckled knowingly, finding all this quite amusing. Sounds to me like she likes you. If she did, she probably doesn't anymore, Fluttershy mumbled to herself, softly scuffing the floor. Why would an exotic, talented, special pony like Twilight ever be interested in a plain old pink-maned Ponyville Pegasus like her as anything more than friends? I left such a bad impression on her. I don't even want to know what she thinks. But I do know I need your help to fix that, please. If if that's okay with you. Well, sure thing, Shug. If you really want to impress Twilight, then of course I'll help you. I'd be happy to, Applejack assured her, giving her a comforting, if slightly teasing nudge in the side. But I reckon you needn't be beating yourself up about that. I've got it! Rarity abruptly announced, her eyes wide with excitement. Got what? No manners? Applejack muttered to herself, more than a little miffed at being interrupted. No, the perfect idea for your date, Rarity said, her horn glowing as she conjured up an illusion, whisking her friends away to the world of pure imagination she saw in her mind's eye. Can't you just picture it now? The perfect moonlit night, reflected in the ripples in the water, magical light, courtesy of your amazingly clever and generous friend Rarity, softly glowing in the trees around you, the two of you gently drifting across the lake together in a gondola. Ah, what dola? Applejack interrupted. Rarity paused, visibly displeased. A gondola. Gone where? The cow pony scratched her head. Rarity glared at her. You shut up. Ahem. Where was I? She asked, quickly returning to a state of wonder and whimsy. Oh yes, Twilight and Fluttershy drifting across the lake, the serene caress of the breeze coasting past them, coaching them to come closer and share more of their heart's deepest desires with one another, until they have the moment, she said, as if delivering a Shakespearean performance. Fluttershy blinked. The moment? The moment, Rarity declared with vigour, beginning to enact the moment on a very bewildered Fluttershy as a melodramatic explanation continued. The moment when you just can't resist the call of romance any longer. The moment when you lose yourself in a sudden burst of heartfelt passion, where you reach out and grab Twilight, take her in your hooves and say to her, you stupid fowl, can't you see what I'm trying to tell you? I love you. I have always loved you, and loved you well. Now kiss me, she demanded. Rarity? Fluttershy shrank back, not particularly keen to be kissed by her best friend. She didn't even realize how far back she'd leaned until she fell over, emitting a high-pitched yelp. Rarity rolled her eyes. Honestly, darling, it's called acting. Do relax yourself, she said dismissively. Oh, I see, Fluttershy said, suddenly feeling very embarrassed. Maybe she hadn't gotten that carried away. That sounds nice, Rarity, but I'm not sure if I want that right away. She uneasily admitted not wanting to hurt her best friend's feelings, since it was clear she was already so invested in the idea. No, I suppose you're right. That would be a bit forward, wouldn't it? Rarity conceded, oblivious to the sigh of relief that elicited from Fluttershy. We should save that for the second date. Oh, my. Fluttershy flushed a bashful shade of crimson, a somewhat goofy grin working its way across her features. Could she really be so lucky as to have 2 dates with Twilight Sparkle? Oh, she couldn't believe that. She didn't dare hope. She wasn't breathing. A sudden coughing fit more or less cured that oxygen deprivation. You were right there? Rarity eyed her, wondering if she could offer a glass of water. Ahem. Applejack cleared her throat, calling her friend's attention over to her general direction. That plan of yours is all well and good, Rarity, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here. First things first, Fluttershy, before you get to any of that, you're gonna have to pull on your big man's breeches, march on over there to Twilight's library, knock on her door, and invite her out with ya, she instructed. That was just proper manners. Fluttershy's face fell, her fantasy shattered. I don't get to skip that part? She asked, already trembling at the prospect. She liked it much better when she could pretend they were already on their second date. Applejack's right, Rarity agreed, able to appreciate the cow pony's healthy knack for common sense. It did help to keep her grand ideas firmly rooted to reality, and keep her focused on the important details of the present rather than those of the distant future. You'll never get to the romantic gondola on the lake with the fairy lights where you experience the moment if you spend all your time avoiding her. And that would be a tragedy. You simply have to ask her out as soon as possible. What? Fluttershy cringed in abject horror. You wanted to have a good time with her, right? AG pointed out, remembering Rarity's earlier summary of Fluttershy's motives. That's what you're struggling with, and that's what you need us to fix for you? Well, yes, Fluttershy conceded. But... Well, that settles it then, Applejack continued, giving her an affectionate slap on the back. Ow! If you want to have that totally and completely perfect first date without Twilight ever actually realizing it's a date, then now's your chance, Applejack insisted, thinking all her friend's problems had been solved in one fell swoop. No time like the present. But She's right, Rarity cut her off. The quicker you go about this, the quicker you'll have built up your confidence, and the sooner you'll be able to stop dwelling on yesterday's disaster, the better, she said, determined to get Fluttershy and Twilight together, even if they had to start small with simple, friendly hanging out rather than grand romantic gestures. It was a simple plan, really. Once Fluttershy saw that she could be around Twilight without it ending in catastrophe, all her friends' worries would fly away, and from that point onwards everything between them would go smashingly. Then she could get to the grand romantic gestures. Yes, it simply must be tonight, said Rarity, already spinning a web of delightfully devious schemes for the future. Don't you think? Fluttershy's voice shook. Oh wait, that wasn't her voice, that was her whole body. Oh gosh. No! She hunkered down, lying prone on the floor, squeezing her eyes shut. She couldn't do this. Even thinking about talking to Twilight was enough to make her fall to pieces. The last thing she needed was to embarrass herself in front of her again. She'd had quite enough of that, thank you very much. Knowing that her friends would be watching only made it worse. I'm sorry, Sugarcube, but I ain't taking no for an answer, Applejack said, moving over to her, prepared to make her go whether she liked it or not. It was for her own good, and one day she would appreciate it. Up you get there, missy. No! Fluttershy didn't budge, remaining firmly in her shivering heap on the floor, hooves covering her eyes. I'm not going. You can't make me. Fluttershy insisted again, to no avail. Rarity was levitating her with her horn, while Applejack had taken her by the tail, dragging the pony along behind her, the pair attracting odd looks as they led their unwilling friend through Ponyville's streets. Abruptly, Fluttershy fell to the ground with an oof. We're here, Applejack announced, smiling brightly at her good deed. Oh, no! Fluttershy squeaked, overtaken by the urge to make a run for it, and for once her legs listened to her desire to flee in terror. Unfortunately, she was lying on her side at the time, so she didn't make it very far. She whimpered. Come now, darling, it's not that difficult, Rarity said, pushing Fluttershy up off the ground towards Twilight's library. The fact that she dug her hooves in the dirt in an instinctive effort to resist didn't seem to make it any harder for the unicorn to deposit her right in front of the door. All you have to do is ask her if she's free tonight and if she'd like to go somewhere with ya, Applejack said, trotting over to the library, intent on sticking close by Fluttershy to give her a sense of support, ideally while also remaining out of sight of Twilight when she inevitably opened the door. Okay, Fluttershy stammered, already hyperventilating. How do I do that? She asked, drawing a complete mental blank. Rarity daintily cleared her throat. Repeat after me. Twilight, would you like to go out with me? She said, articulating like the skilled orator she was. Twilight, would you like to go out with me? Fluttershy repeated. Oh, was that all she had to do? Okay, that wasn't so hard. She could do that. Twilight, would you like to go out with me? She said again, more confidently. That's it. You've got it, Applejack said encouragingly. She had figured this wouldn't be so hard. Now remember, we're right here with you. That's right, Rarity piped up. Just remember to breathe, and keep your wits about you. Right? And keep a proper posture. Yeah, you gotta seem confident, but not too confident. Wait. Fluttershy shook her head, getting confused. She didn't think she'd be able to remember all these instructions. Stay strong, but be demure. Show her you're interested. Maintain a mystique. The thrill is in the chase, darling. Just don't forget to be yourself, sugar. But above all else, you must be aloof, was Rarity's concluding command, the unicorn swiftly diving behind some bushes in order to hide. Fluttershy blinked incredulously. Be aloofer? She asked, feeling completely lost, not to mention terrified. but it was too late. Wait, what's a loofah? Asked Fluttershy, beginning to panic. Before she could get an answer, Applejack had already knocked on the door on her behalf, the cow pony quickly flattening herself against the wall to stay out of sight. Eep! Fluttershy froze. This wasn't happening. This was a bad dream. If she tried really hard, maybe she could wake up before... Twilight opened the door. Help! She cut herself off mid-word when she saw who was there. Fluttershy, she said, her heart soaring at the sight of her. As far as surprises went, this one was more than welcome. She could cancel all her holidays. No gift would top this. Hi. Fluttershy smiled nervously, her cheeks reddening slightly. As scared as she was also secretly elated to be around her again. Being near Twilight almost made her feel all tingly inside, like it was made of cotton candy. Hi. Hi. Twilight reflexively responded, too stunned to think of anything else to say. She hadn't expected this at all. Here she'd thought Fluttershy hated her or didn't want to see her because she thought that Twilight hated her, as Pinkie had predicted. But here she was, right in front of her, on her doorstep, and she was so... pretty. Hi, Twilight said through a deeply infatuated sigh, her pupils closely resembling the shape of hearts as she gazed at her. Hi, Fluttershy said, totally and utterly smitten with her. She liked the way Twilight said hi. It made her feel as if she was hearing the word for the very first time. She'd never heard another pony say it the same way. The way Twilight said hi was so melodic, so wonderful, and so cute, too. And to think she was saying it to a plain old no-pony like her. Hi? Twilight couldn't help the goofy grin that washed over her then. A book being flung at her head from behind quickly snapped her out of her daze, though. Oh, right. Be cool. Be cool. Yes. I mean, what are you... Another book hit her head as a means of correction, forcibly reminding her to do as she'd been told. Oh, horse apples! She silently cursed a mental blank for striking again. What was that line again? What had Rainbow Dash told her to say? What's a nice pony like you doing in a place like this? Twilight asked, trying to seem casual and collected, moving to lean nonchalantly on the door frame. However, she misjudged the distance and lost her balance. Gah! She flailed, quickly managing to catch herself on the frame before she fell. Somewhere behind her, Pinkie Pie had to bite her hooves to stifle her laughter. Oh, it's nothing. I should just... Before she could excuse herself, Fluttershy met eyes with a thoroughly displeased Rarity, who shook her head and sternly gestured for her to get on with it. Or else. She didn't have a choice, did she? Oh, goodness. She had to muster up her courage and go through with it. Well, what I mean to say is... She glanced down, anxiously twisting her hoof against the ground. I've been, thinking about yesterday, and, I had a really good time, and... She swallowed, her knees knocking together as she spoke. Yes? Asked Twilight, leaning in closer in an effort to hear her beautiful voice. I was wondering if maybe you'd like to do it again sometime, maybe tonight. I mean, I could understand you didn't want to. It's just a suggestion, really. You don't have to. Fluttershy mumbled before immediately ducking behind her mane, too scared to hear the answer. Rarity smacked herself in the head. Twilight blinked, her eyes and ears conveying her confusion. Sorry? Didn't catch any of that, she admitted with an uncomfortable laugh. Would you, run that by me again, please? She said, sure that she would love to hear anything Fluttershy had to say. Fluttershy took a few deep breaths, telling herself to calm down. She could do this. She knew what to say. She'd practiced it. Well, twice. She swallowed and shifted her legs, gathering what little inner strength she still had with her at that point, preparing to say those fateful words. Twilight, do you... She began in a voice even dogs would have struggled to hear. However, just as she started speaking, Applejack bit her tail and gave it a mighty yank, the painful jolt causing her volume to suddenly spike. Do you want to go out with... Yes! Twilight eagerly leapt forward, unable to contain herself. Fluttershy yelped, and fell backwards in shock, literally bowled over by the sudden sound. Her wide, startled eyes stared up at Twilight, unblinking, her tail still throbbing from Applejack having pulled it. Rainbow Dash rolled her eyes. She had the worst freaking students. Twilight chuckled awkwardly. On second thought, maybe that had been a little much. I would love to go out with you sometime, she smiled shyly, her cheeks turning pink. If that's what you are asking, I mean. Oh, really? Fluttershy released the breath she wasn't aware she'd been holding. I mean, yes, that's what I was asking, she said. She didn't even notice that her wings had lifted her off the ground and that she was hovering in the air like a hummingbird. Tonight's fine, Twilight beamed, once again unable to control her volume. It's excellent even. Spectacularific, she all but squealed. Wait, spectacularific? She would never forgive her brain for making her say that. Great, Fluttershy breathed, raising her forelimbs above her head with joy. So thrilled she couldn't even believe it. Apparently neither could her wings, which made her do a loop in the air, not that Fluttershy was aware of this motion. I'll meet you here, she offered, unconsciously rubbing her front fetlocks together in a manner Twilight thought was the sweetest thing to ever be witnessed by ponykind. That would be swell, Twilight said, scarcely able to keep a lid on her excitement. She felt like she was going to burst into fireworks at any second. Swell? Rainbow Dash mouthed in disbelief, exchanging looks with Pinkie, though the pink pony didn't seem to share her objections with the term. Okay, Fluttershy grinned. Okay, Twilight replied. Okay, Fluttershy said back, still just hovering there, staring in Twilight's eyes. Another tug on her tail caught Fluttershy's attention. She looked over to see both Applejack and Rarity darting their eyes to one side, tilting their necks in the same direction as if they were signalling something. For several moments she had no idea what they meant, though. Why would they keep gesturing away from Twilight's house like that? Oh gosh, she'd forgotten to leave, hadn't she? How did she forget that, of all things? That was only the second most basic thing after arriving. But now that she'd jumped the first hurdle, she didn't want to go anywhere. She was content to stay right where she was. Unfortunately, she knew she had to leave, at least for a little while. I suppose I should... Fluttershy floated backward slightly, averting her eyes. If you must, Twilight replied, without realizing she'd said it out loud. So, then, until tonight? Said Fluttershy, her heart pitter-pattering in a manner that so suited her name. Fly, Buttershy. Shy, Flutterby, bye, Fluttershy, Twilight murmured, wholeheartedly love-struck, her tongue all in a twist as a million different thoughts danced through her head. She stood there and sighed dreamily, watching her beloved float away, unwilling to break eye contact. Twilight? Rainbow Dash said, flying down and slowly closing the door, making sure she couldn't be seen from the street as she did so. Twilight didn't seem to notice. Twilight! She tried again, waving a hoof in front of her. No response. I think she's broken, the Pegasus shrugged, looking to Pinkie Pie for help. It was around that moment that everything finally sank in. Yes! Twilight cheered, springing into the air. Yeah! Rainbow recoiled in shock. Yes! Yes! I said yes! I said yes! Twilight said, jumping around in circles in pure unbridled joy. She had never been so happy in her entire life. I said yes! She said yes! Yes! Said Pinkie Pie, who naturally was doing the exact same thing as Twilight, merrily bouncing around behind her. Not that the purple pony noticed. Yes! Haha, this is fun, Dashy. You should try it. Yes. Rainbow Dash let the brim of her hat fall over her eyes a little more. Twilight! She eventually called out. What? Twilight immediately came to a stop, causing Pinkie to crash into her. She glanced around herself in haste, wondering if Fluttershy was back. She didn't want her to catch her like that. That would have been an awkward way to make her feelings known. Shouldn't you be, getting ready? Rainbow pointed out, having witnessed firsthand how hopeless and unprepared Twilight still was for this. Twilight gasped, glancing up at the clock. "Oh, Celestia, you're right," she said, galloping over to one of her bookshelves. She only had a few hours until Fluttershy came back to take her out. In that time, she had to learn how to be cool from Rainbow Dash, study up on everything she could about proper technique and procedure, and on top of that, she had to figure out what she was going to wear, get ready, and make herself look nice. There was no time to lose. If she was going to make it, she was going to have to cram like she'd never crammed before. "Pinky!" Twilight called out with all seriousness of a surgeon in the middle of an operation. "Yes!" Pinky appeared at her side, saluting. "I need you to start looking for some books," Twilight instructed, knowing the pink pony had a gift for finding even the most elusive text. "If you could possibly find any instructional books or comprehensive guides to dating." "You mean like this one?" Pinky replied, her words muffled by the book that was already in her mouth. Twilight looked at her strangely before shaking off her puzzlement. "Let me see," she said, summoning it to her with her horn. "A Perfect Gentle Cult, the true romantic's guide to wooing a lady." Twilight grinned. "Pinky, this is great. See if you can find anything else," she said, carrying the book over to her desk so she could get work copying notes. "Will do," Pinky said, happily hopping up and down in front of bookshelves, possibly in an effort to read the titles, but then again maybe just because she was Pinky. "Hey, what are you doing?" asked Rainbow Dash, looking more than a little miffed at being forgotten. "Making a cheat sheet," Twilight answered bluntly. "I can't very well carry an entire book with me when I'm out with Fluttershy, can I?" she pointed out, planning on making a discreet list she could refer to throughout the night. "Well, no, I guess not," Rainbow conceded. "But that's not what I meant." "What did you mean?" asked Twilight, too busy flipping through the book to pay her friend any attention. "I thought I was going to teach you how to be cool," she said, feeling offended at being overlooked for a stuffy old book. The book didn't even have a neat hat. "You are," Twilight assured her, much to Rainbow's confusion. "You're just not going to have as much time or freedom to tutor me as we thought. You'll have to try to teach me all you can while I'm taking notes from these books." Rainbow looked unsure. "But being cool isn't something you can just learn by ear, especially not you," she commented, only now really grasping the gravity of the task she had signed herself up for. She could do it, sure, and she would give it her all, but Twilight was going to take a lot of work to de-dorkify. "You have to, practice this stuff. I mean, why do you think I spend so much time training my tricks? You gotta drill it until it becomes second nature." "I understand," Twilight nodded, willing to acknowledge she had a darn good point. "In that case, I'll set aside some time for a practice session. I can do some last-minute revision with you then. And I'm probably going to need you to come with me," she said, casting her most imploring glance up at the Pegasus, begging her to agree like a puppy would beg to be let in from the cold. "Come with you?" Rainbow balked, evidently unmoved by her puppy dog eyes. Oh, can I come too?" said Pinky, desperate to be taken as well. She did so love to be a part of everything. It was better than being left behind anyway. "Sure you can," Twilight happily agreed, knowing that Pinky was sure to have her uses. With her spontaneity, she should never be short on topics for conversation. "Great!" Pinky cheered. "Where are we going?" she asked excitedly. Twilight just stared at her. "Oh, right! Helping you put the moves on Fluttershy," she said, suggestively nudging a smitten pony in the side. "I just thought you might have been talking about something else is all," she said casually, strutting off to do her Pinky things. "Wait, let me get this straight." Rainbow seized the opportunity to cut in, needing to clear this up to make sure she was hearing her friend correctly. "You want me to tag along on your date?" she asked in disbelief, hoping even Twilight could see the flaws with that suggestion. "It's not a date. At least, I don't want Fluttershy to know it is, yet," Twilight said, hanging her head as the demands of the situation increasingly loomed over her like the shadow of a guillotine blade. "And I don't want you to actually be there with us or anything. I just want you to stick nearby so I can go to you for advice. That way you can tell me what to do or say when I clamp up," she explained, flipping the page in her guidebook, her quill furiously scratching away. Realization dawned on Rainbow Dash. "Oh, I get it." She nodded in understanding, finally following her train of thought. You want me to be your coach and call your plays from the sidelines? Twilight hesitated. Yes, I think so. I don't know much about sports. I gotcha, Chief, Rainbow reassured her, giving her a sly wink, signaling that nothing more needed to be said. You've made the right call. I won't let you down, she said, clearly getting pumped up, motivated by a renewed sense of team spirit. Everything is going to be super and special and awesome. I'll make sure of it, Pinkie promised, intent on making this the actual best night ever, already anticipating how much fun this would be. You and Fluttershy are going to go out, and then you're going to go out some more, and then you're going to fall in love, and then you're going to move in together, and then you're going to propose to her, and then you'll be engaged, and then you're going to get married, and then you'll have children, and then you'll name them combinations of your names, like Fluttersparkle and Twittershy, and then... Rainbow covered her mouth with a hoof, bringing the torrent of words to a halt. Why don't we focus on getting one date off the ground before we start sending out the wedding invitations? Oh, okay, Pinkie said, throwing away the invitation she'd already written. It was fine, she could always make more. No need to rush the lovebirds, eh? Said Rainbow, teasingly brushing up against Twilight, managing to elicit a blush from the unicorn, even as she tried to concentrate on jotting down pointers from the book. Thanks, you two. You have no idea how much it'll mean to me to have you there. I really appreciate it, Twilight said sincerely, doubting she would ever be able to repay them in a way that accurately encompassed her gratitude. Think nothing of it, Rainbow said, like she was some sort of dashing hero, nudging up the brim of her hat. It's all in a day's work for the coolest pony in Equestria, and don't even think of trying to repay me. I do this because I care, entirely out of the goodness of my own heart. I mean, I'm not the element of loyalty for You want the hat, don't you? Twilight realized, becoming annoyed. I really like this hat, Rainbow trailed off with a grin, once again getting distracted by the snazzy trilby atop her head. Fluttershy murmured, lost in a dreamlike state. She felt like her heart had grown wings. Her hooves hadn't touched the ground since they left Twilight's library. Literally. Some ponies happy, Rarity smirked snugly, prancing along as if in dressage. She did so love being proven correct. I told ya there was nothing to worry about, said Applejack, now more convinced than ever that she had called the situation right from the start. Fluttershy wasn't the only love-struck fowl, if her eyes and ears were to be believed, and they didn't usually go around playing tricks on her. Fluttershy. What? Was all Fluttershy managed, too smitten and too far gone to form anything more than gibberish. She didn't seem to have any idea where she was, nor did she have a care in Equestria. Twilight had said yes. She wanted to go out with her. She giggled, unconsciously performing a barrel roll. Applejack quirked a brow. Should we do something about that? She asked, wondering if she should lure Fluttershy's head down from the clouds sooner rather than later. Oh, let her have her fun, Rarity said, finding Fluttershy's current mood far too sweet to spoil. You know as well as I do that she'll be a nervous wreck all afternoon. May as well let her savour this moment. I guess you have a point, Applejack agreed, even if Fluttershy now closely resembled a mushy puddle of amorphous goo. That this was definitely an improvement over how she'd been before. So dreamy, Fluttershy sighed, utterly spellbound. And to think it would only be a few hours before she saw her again. Only a few hours until her special little date, only Fluttershy wasn't supposed to know it was a date, later tonight. Wait, tonight? She was seeing her tonight? In a few hours? Oh gosh, what had she done? Wah! She fell out of the sky. Oh, there it is, Fluttershy commented without even looking. Welcome back, darling. Fluttershy shook her head to clear the dizziness that had overtaken her, popping back up onto her legs and frantically pacing. Oh my goodness, she said, horrified at the thought of what she still had to do. How could she possibly impress Twilight when it had only been a day since their last disaster? What do I do? What do I do? She lamented to herself. No, but really, what do I do? She asked, turning to Rarity and Applejack for advice. What are you so strung up about? Asked Applejack, genuinely confused. Was she the only pony with any sense around these parts? Surely, even when your eyes were all googly for twilight, you should see it plain as day. See what? Fluttershy wondered aloud, looking more concerned than before. She hadn't missed something important, had she? There was something to see? That she likes, you slowpoke, AJ said, shaking her head at her oblivious friend. Did she really have to point out something so obvious? You don't know that, Fluttershy said, sadly, unwilling to get her hopes up when her fears kept sending them crashing back down to reality. Fluttershy, you asked her if she wanted to go out with you, and then she jumped at the opportunity, Applejack pointed out, starting to question whether Fluttershy had a faulty memory. Yes, go out. As friends, Fluttershy corrected her. You have to admit, darling, she was very eager to enjoy your company, Rarity chipped in. Yes, because the way I've been acting lately probably made her think there's something wrong with our friendship, Fluttershy rather sensibly answered. Even though she didn't agree, Rarity had to admit it was an illogical deduction by any means. Applejack scratched her head. But she got all tongue-tied and nervous around you, she observed, still unsure why she had to argue the point when it was staring them right in the face. Yes, probably because the way I act around her creeps her out, Fluttershy said, sinking lower into the ground at the prospect, her ears flopping in sadness. Rarity and Applejack stopped to exchange looks. No wonder Fluttershy was such an introvert. They would be too if they always imagined the worst-case scenario for every possible event. Are you naturally this pessimistic, or did you have to practice? Rarity remarked. Yes, Fluttershy murmured, not especially keen to talk about it anymore. They'd already made it back to the Carousel Boutique. She hadn't even realized they'd been headed there. Well, not much you can do now except go through with it, Applejack said brightly, giving her a slap on the rump, making her jump forward. I don't know if I can, Fluttershy admitted, plagued with doubts. All of this was happening so fast, she hadn't even had time to adjust. I think I should just head home. Oh? Applejack suddenly frowned and lowered her head, seeming really hurt. I see, so that's how it's gonna be, huh? She sighed. Real classy. Fluttershy stared cluelessly. What? Honestly, Fluttershy, how could you of all ponies be so thoughtless and mean-spirited? Rarity shook her head with disapproval, catching on quickly and playing along with Applejack's little act. I thought you were better than this. Huh? You would ask your dear friend Twilight Sparkle to spend time with you and get her hopes up like that, only to abandon her and leave her waiting there all night, alone and unwanted, said Rarity, looking betrayed at the very thought. And you claim to love her. She'll be crushed when she realizes Fluttershy ain't coming, Applejack said to her, giving her a world-weary shake of her head. After being treated like that, Twilight will probably never be able to trust her or any pony ever again. Indeed. Rarity nodded solemnly, very conscious of the increasing expression of guilt and regret on Fluttershy's features. And we all know that losing a friend's trust is the quickest way to lose their friendship forever. Pinkie Pie popped out of a tree's foliage to say with the utmost seriousness, before slinking back inside again, returning to Twilight's library. Oh, goodness! Fluttershy squeezed her eyes shut, feeling like she was on the verge of tears. You're right, she conceded. She couldn't just walk away from an engagement she'd already made and leave some pony she loved hanging. She made her bed. Now she had to lie in it. I will go out with Twilight like I promised, but if I'm going to do this, I really need your help. Really, she concluded, unable to emphasize that point enough. That's what we're here for, darling, Rarity assured her, regaining her happy mood in an instant. You can count on us, Applejack said with a trustworthy wink. Oh, this is going to be so exciting! Rarity all but sung with glee, dashing inside her store as her mind overflowed with brilliant ideas. Oh, I've got dozens of outfits that would be absolutely perfect for you, she said, using her magic to sort through their clothing racks. Oh, here she goes. Applejack rolled her eyes, bringing a hoof to her face in annoyance. Now, do you want to look sexy, sensual, spicy, saucy, seductive, secretive, vibrant, virginal, vivacious, chaste, charming, cute, hot, cool, pretty, beautiful, ravishing, feisty, demure, exotic, erotic, quixotic, fiery, laid-back, casual, alluring, tempting, revealing, or merely fantastic? I have one for every occasion, said Rarity, intently rifling through her shelves. Oh, where's she gone? She asked, glancing about herself in confusion, seeing as how Fluttershy had apparently vanished into thin air. In fact, she ducked behind Applejack, where she had begun quivering in terror. She was so bad at decisions. Why did there have to be so many choices? She didn't even know what some of those words meant. Sensing her friend's distress, Applejack elected to step forward. Rarity, don't you think this is all a little much? Too much? Rarity looked aghast, as if the concept that any amount of fashion could ever be too much was completely alien to her. Applejack moved closer, whispering to her privately. Twilight already likes her for who she is, she pointed out, knowing Rarity shared her suspicions about that. No need to go making her look like some pony she's not. Well, yes, but that doesn't mean she can't look nice, Rarity countered, wanting the evening to be special for her dearest friend. I mean, what about now? Applejack pushed whatever dress she was reaching for back into the rack. But I've got... Rare, it's Fluttershy's date, only Twilight ain't supposed to know it's a date. Don't you think she should get to choose how she looks instead of playing your mannequin? Applejack said, staring the unicorn dead in the eye. Once again, Rarity knew she was right, reluctant though she was to admit it. Well, when you put it like that, she glanced down gloomily, I guess I'll just have to do her makeup then. She instantly perked back up again. Twilight sighed in frustration. She looks fine, she insisted, lightly pushing Rarity back in place. After all, Fluttershy had become a supermodel with that face, and without any of the caked-on glitter and paint that Rarity liked to drench herself in when she got all dolled up. Oh, come on! I ain't about to let you paint her up like some carnival pony, said Applejack, refusing to budge. Please, just a teensy, Rarity, a smidgen of... No. But... Shh. Rarity huffed, glaring at the cow pony who was so devoted to the task of raining on her parade. Must you spoil my fun? She asked. Where possible, Applejack grinned. If looks could kill, there would have been an Apple family funeral that day. Well, can I at least do her mane? Rarity asked, hoping she could seek some sort of compromise to satisfy her need to do something. Applejack opened her mouth as if to protest, but that was when a quiet voice piped up. Actually, I'd like that, Fluttershy said sincerely, sending a somewhat apologetic smile in Rarity's direction. She did want to get her involved, after all. That had been the whole point of coming to her in the first place. Rarity turned to Applejack, clamping her hooves together as if in prayer, batting her eyelashes angelically. Please? Applejack shrugged. If Fluttershy says so, I guess that'd be fine then. Fluttershy half squealed and half giggled with sheer glee before practically pouncing on the Pegasus with mountains of mane product. Come on, champ, you ready for this? Rainbow Dash asked rhetorically, planning on giving an impromptu pep talk to the purple pony, who was pacing back and forth with appreciation as the hour of her non-date drew closer. No, Twilight admitted, apparently missing the point of the whole rhetorical question thing. She was wearing a groove in the floor from how quickly she kept tracing the same steps. It hadn't done much to calm her down either. There's still so many things that aren't right. For starters, the book said I'm supposed to greet her with flowers, and I haven't got... Flowers! Pinky squealed. Why didn't you say so? And then suddenly, flowers. Hundreds of flowers rained down upon her from the ceiling, burying Twilight in a pile that reached about 3 yards high. Twilight sputtered for breath as she pulled herself up to the surface. Pinky, too many flowers. Oh, whoops, she shrugged, humming happily to herself, dancing off without so much as a care. Twilight spat out a flower, glowering in no particular direction. Yeah, about that. Rainbow flew over, perching atop the pile of flowers. Are you really sure you want Pinky to be there tonight? She asked, questioning her friend's judgment. Not that Pinky wasn't awesome or wouldn't try her hardest to help. Just, it was Pinky. She didn't do subtlety or restraint. The whole incident in Appaloosa kind of showed that her methods weren't always the most constructive. Of course she does! Pinkie popped up between the two ponies. Why wouldn't she? I'm the helpingest helper who ever helped. Oh no, Rainbow cringed, sensing what was coming. She's going to... Yep, Twilight deadpanned. I know what ponies like, I know what ponies want. I've seen them looking, I make 'em want me. I like to tease them, they want to touch me. I never let them. I know what ponies like, I know what ponies want. I know what ponies like. Ponies like me. Rainbow didn't know whether to be amused or annoyed. That's great, Pinkie. We have to make one particular pony like Twilight, though, she pointed out. Oh, really? Why? Asked Pinkie innocently. Because she has a date with Fluttershy, Rainbow said, her patience wearing thin. Twilight likes Fluttershy? Pinkie gasped. Two sets of eyes stared on her. Pinkie, are you actually forgetting this every time we tell you, or are you doing this on purpose just to annoy me? Asked Twilight, growing tired of this cycle. Pinkie put her hoof to her chin, thinking it over. Yep, she eventually answered, unhelpfully. Forget it, Twilight said, too short on time to bother pursuing that line of questioning any further, pulling herself out of the flower pile instead. This will have to do. There's nothing more I can accomplish before she gets here, she said, straightening out her dress, shaking off the loose petals that had become stuck to her to the best of her ability. I still say you should have worn a suit, Rainbow commented with a shrug. Suits are hot. Will you shut up already? Twilight snapped. That argument had gone on way too long. A knock at the door killed any chance of them fighting over that again. Oh, Celestia, she's here. Okay, breathe. Be cool. Rainbow coached her, giving her a shoulder massage in an effort to keep her relaxed. Pinkie and I will follow you from the sky. Wherever you end up, make sure you get a table outside so we can watch you. We'll find somewhere to hang nearby until you feel ready to come out and find us. Just go with the list. You got it? Got it, Twilight nodded. Ready? Ready, Twilight enthused, picking up the flowers with her magic, binding the stems together with a piece of ribbon. You psyched? Yeah. You psyched? Yeah. Can you do it? Yeah. 3, 2, 1, break! Rainbow said, swiftly darting off, grabbing Pinkie as she flew up to the second floor. With that, she made her exit off the balcony. Twilight sighed, letting her bouquet rest on her back. Come on, Twilight. You're a sparkle. You'll do fine, she said in an effort to steel herself before finally opening the door. There she was, the pony of her dreams. Hi. Fluttershy nervously smiled. Hi, Twilight said giddily before consciously snapping herself out of a stupor. She wasn't about to start that again. She had to be cool. I'm not too early, am I? Asked Fluttershy, feeling her head spin just looking at Twilight. No, not at all, said Twilight, not even caring if she was early or late, now that Fluttershy was standing in front of her, looking so very beautiful. She couldn't wait another second. Her date, or, not date, couldn't start fast enough. Good, Fluttershy said, trailing off into shy silence. Twilight felt the lull coming, and decided to put an end to it before it began, just as Rainbow Dash had advised. Lulls were bad, so she said the first thing that came to her head. I love what you've done with your mane, she said honestly, glad that the first thing on her mind had been that, and not something ridiculous. Ha! Rarity gloated from her hiding place, rubbing that small victory in Applejack's face. The cow pony purposefully ignored her, and the two went back to spying. Oh, thank you. Fluttershy blushed, giggling a little. She knew she always hid behind her mane, so she'd made sure she couldn't do that tonight by keeping it clipped back. No more hiding. That reminds me, Twilight laughed nervously, deciding to get this done before she forgot about it. Here, she said, levitating the bouquet with her mind. Fluttershy gave a soft gasp, her heart humming and her wings flapping. bringing her into the air. Oh my, she said, practically dumbstruck. She hadn't expected this, but she liked it. Thank you so much, she managed to say through her ill-concealed surprise and excitement, cheeks glowing red as she took the flowers between her fetlocks. They're beautiful, like you, Twilight all but gushed. How romantic, Rarity cooed, batting her eyelashes. Applejack groaned. This was going to be a long night. For several moments it was silent again. So, Twilight eventually perked up. Let's go, shall we? Oh, yes, let's, Fluttershy replied, nodding as if to convince herself that she hadn't merely forgotten. She was the one who knew where this date was taking place. Come on, said Applejack, poking a daydreaming Rarity in the side, which did nothing to rouse her. We have got to get there before they see us, she reminded her, practically dragging the unicorn away, taking the shortcut to their destination.